Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric and a continuing series on the Steam Deck. More importantly, what emulators you should be playing, what games you should play on them, and how to get them set up. And I'm really excited about today's episode because I grew up in the era of point-and-click adventure games, and we're going to be talking about ScummVM. It's basically a freestanding emulator that allows you to play a metric crap ton of old DOS and Windows PC games in an environment that makes it much more modern. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But ScummVM is an absolutely spectacular emulator that has such a laundry list of games that are considered some of the best adventure games of all time. We're going to be able to enjoy each and every one of them on our Steam Deck, whether we're in handheld mode or whether we dock the Steam Deck for our television. Now, taking a look at some of the files here for games I own, there's different variants you can use. You're going to see this Windows CD is marked as ScummVM, and it's going to have a .scumvm file in it. Some games require this, some games do not. When you're looking to add games, just make sure they're ScummVM compatible and you should be fine. Now be aware that you cannot use zips in this emulator as far as I've ever been able to do. If you know of anything different, leave me a comment down below. But what you do is you unpack every game that you own and you want to add to your Steam Deck, and then you're going to have them within folders. So we can go ahead and just get rid of the zips from there if we so want to. You're not always going to see a .scumvm file, but as long as a game is demarcated as being compatible with ScummVM when you grab it, you should be totally fine and good to go. And that's the great part, is that there's so many awesome games we can take a look at here. I'm just adding a few of my favorites from my gaming shelf to my Steam Deck so I can enjoy them on the couch when I don't feel like sitting in front of my vintage PCs. But what I'll do here is I'll just go ahead and make a folder on my external USB device, and I'll call it ScummVM to keep everything organized. And then I will copy over the folders that I have here to that USB drive so I can bring them into my Steam Deck later on in this tutorial. Do be aware you can download stuff in desktop mode on the Steam Deck. I just find this to be easier right here. But there's something very interesting about parsing of ScummVM games that sometimes work and sometimes doesn't. It is quite temperamental, and that is what the folder actually needs to be called. If we take a look over here at the EmuDeck GitHub wiki page, you're going to see there's a listing on how to configure ScummVM to work with Steam ROM Manager. What you need to do is add a .scumvm extension to the folder. Now, folders don't have extensions. We're really just adding an end to the file name, but it has to be something that Steam Grid Database is able to actually parse. And if we go over to their website right now and type in Blade Runner, you're going to see there's one entry for Blade Runner 1997, and that 1997 is in brackets. So this seems to be about how the text ingest goes. So I'm going to try to attempt to do here is change the name of this folder. I'm going to have it say Blade Runner. I'm going to put 1997 in those brackets, and then I'm going to type a period here so it says .scumvm, just like the directions on GitHub for EmuDeck tell me to do so. This sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't, but I'm showing you how to do it here. And just be aware, all of my different tutorials are predicated on using a dock for your Steam Deck and either USB thumb drive or a micro SD card with an adapter. Doesn't really matter. This is just what I like to do when I'm doing these things, and I will leave a link to this dock if I remember down below. It's not an affiliate link. I don't make any money. It's just there because it's what I believe works best for me, and I'm sure it'll be fine for you too. Now that we get over to the Steam desktop mode, we'll go ahead and mount and open that external drive we have right there. And you're going to see in this ScummVM folder that we just showed you on Windows, we have all 4 of the different games we're going to be adding to ScummVM to play on our Steam Deck. So we'll just go ahead and copy those and paste them in the appropriate folder wherever you've installed EmuDeck. So we'll just pop over there now and navigate to it. Do be aware that none of these games are going to require any sort of BIOS file whatsoever. ScummVM takes care of that for you by not needing one, so we're not putting anything whatsoever in the BIOS folder on this tutorial. But if we pop over to the ROMs folder and we scroll all the way down to the S's, obviously Scum alphabetized, you're going to find it there. You will see the ScummVM folder, and that's where we're going to drop all of our games here. Although technically when you're using ScummVM, the emulator, doesn't really matter where the games are. This is for organization and ease of use. And you'll see here there's a systeminfo.txt. If you're going to be using a game that is a little bit more modern, you're going to have to see that .scumvm file extension in the folder, like when we play Blade Runner. For some of the DOS games, it is not required whatsoever. Just make sure that when you're grabbing your games, they are demarcated again as ScummVM executables. You'll see here that we have the 4 folders. We've copied them into the ScummVM folder, and then we can pop back into EmuDeck. A lot of times when I'm doing these tutorials, there isn't a tab for them under Manage Emulators because they're in RetroArch, not freestanding standalones. But you will see here that there is a ScummVM tab. You can update the emulator if it has an update available. You can reset the configuration if anything goes wrong. It's good for Scum and DOS games, which is some of what we're going to be using today. And you'll see that the quick start is the start button itself. That'll bring the menu up for ScummVM when you're actually within the program. So just keep that in mind in case you want to go in there and reset something. So we'll go ahead and open up Steam ROM Manager, read the warning about it changing your controls ever so slightly. This seems to trip people up, and scroll down to the bottom until you see ScummVM Flatpak. If this is toggled on, it should ingest the games if it feels like working. If it's not toggled on, it's never going to work. But like I said, 7 out of 10 times I try to actually get Steam ROM Manager to ingest any sort of ScummVM game. It just does not work. I tried to add Blade Runner here and it did not show up, but just hit save to Steam in case you get some good luck, because the parser and the category, ScummVM never shows up in either of them, so you need to scroll down and try to find the games that you have added. From there we'll just pop over to return to gaming mode, and we'll go ahead and enter into emulation, because there is no heading for ScummVM that I've ever been able to really get on my Steam Deck. Also, it's really not my preferred way to do this. I like just launching the emulator. But the interesting thing about ScummVM is it's technically not an emulator. It's actually rewriting some of the game's executables to work on more modern target hardware. So it's technically taking the assets from the games you own and running them in a different manner on more modern hardware. I don't think it really matters, it's kind of fun to me. Once you get into ScummVM, it's going to be empty outside of the Blade Runner I added earlier. If you click the Add Games button, it'll automatically navigate to that ScummVM folder we just saw on the desktop. Select whichever game you want to add and hit Choose. Once this comes up, there's going to be a bunch of different options per game, and make sure you check them out. Graphics, key maps will show you what buttons are going to be configured, audio, volume, MIDI controls, things such as that. Each game is going to have ever so slightly different settings, so I do recommend when you add a game, you make sure you go through them at least once. You can change them later, but this is the first time you're going to get a chance to do it, so it is worth checking it out here. Once you're happy with everything the way it is, and 9 times out of 10 you don't really need to change anything, just go ahead and hit OK, and it'll add that game to the menu. And you need to do it with every single game you've added to your folder. When you're adding new games and you're adding games for the first time, just go ahead and pick and hit Choose, and you'll see here that there's a couple options toggled by default. You can go through all of those, like something like Sam and Max here. You're going to see that when we hit Choose, there's going to be a bunch of different options, some that change some of the gameplay or altered to things ever so slightly, so just make sure you're paying attention to all the different options. When you want to run a game, just highlight it, go ahead up to the top right and hit Start, or you can click A twice and it'll boot the game, and it boots it almost instantaneously. Now there is a compatibility tracker for ScummVM, and I will leave a link to it below if I remember. You can go through all the different games that are compatible with ScummVM. This is not DOSBox, you can't throw anything into it. It is for specific games, but seeing something like Sam and Max Hit the Road is just awesome on Steam Deck. This is my absolute favorite point-and-click adventure game from growing up, and I have so much fun with it still. Now be aware that most of these games were designed for using a keyboard, something that you don't automatically have on the Steam Deck, so there's going to be situations in which you need to call the virtual keyboard onto screen for certain games. Like in Sam and Max Hit the Road here, there's going to be a save menu, and once you drag your cursor over to save and hit the acknowledge button, it is going to make you select a slot. Once we select slot A, it's going to need you to type something in, so hold down the Steam button and hit X. You will get your virtual keyboard to come up on screen. From there, type in whatever you want, hit Steam and X again, it'll disappear, and then hit OK. This is a situation in which you have to have a keyboard to type in some sort of name on the save file. Without it, you're not going to be able to save in game. So just be aware, if you hold down the Steam button and hit X, that's how you're going to get that menu. And then from there, the save is going to persist in the game. You can go ahead and hit load and come back right to where you were before. Some games in ScummVM allow you to save in a different manner without a keyboard as much, and I will show you those in just a moment. But as we move over to I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, just remember that these are some of the most classic games of their era. If you grew up with them, I'm sure you're going to love playing them on your Steam Deck, and if you didn't, definitely do check them out. They are such engrossing titles. Sure, they're not filled with action, but there's so much other fun to be had. But when I talk about saving, there's more than one way to do it. Not every single game is compatible with it. But if you want to bring up the ScummVM menu, you just go ahead and hit the start button, and you'll be able to see that there is a save and a load icon here as well. This does not work for every single game, but for something like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, it does. But you will see that you still need to bring the virtual keyboard up again. One more time, hold down Steam and hit the X button. Go ahead and give it a name, and then from there you can save and load in ScummVM's menu versus actually using the games menu, and it's going to function the exact same way. It's just a different way to do something. So I wanted to point that out to you guys. And again, if you want to reload that game, you just go ahead and pop back into the ScummVM menu by hitting start. You go ahead and hit load, and then whatever game you want to save and load is going to be in that options menu right there. Now to launch a new game, just hit start and hit return to launcher, and go ahead and pick whatever else it is that you want to play on your Steam Deck today. Something like Blade Runner is going to be a little bit more advanced, and sometimes you're going to see a menu option that says that it's not perfectly stable. 9 times out of 10 it just means there's a few glitches and you're going to be able to complete the game, but do refer to the compatibility tracker on the ScummVM website so you know what you're getting yourself into, so you don't start a game that it's impossible to finish. But being able to play all of these games on the Steam Deck is absolutely one of my favorite things about the device. It's not just that it emulates PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, it's that I can play classic point-and-click adventure games without having to be at my computer trying to run ScummVM or sitting at a vintage laptop on my couch, which is how I used to do it before. And don't forget, you can hook up a keyboard and a mouse to your Steam Deck docked, so you can, in Bluetooth, actually play these games the way they were originally intended when they came out on computer as well. Well, minus the fact that definitely wasn't a wireless keyboard back in the day. But if you follow this tutorial, you look up ScummVM compatible games and you put everything in the appropriate folders and go through all the ScummVM settings in the menu the way I showed you, you're going to be playing some of the most classic adventure games ever made from back in the day. If you run into any issues or have any problems, leave me a comment down below and I'll try to help you guys out. But go play at least Sam & Max Hit the Road. It is spectacular and it still holds up. See you next time. Bye bye.